Unexpected twist. Waitress's last 10 to homeless man reveals incredible hidden mafia boss. The clatter of plates and the sizzling sounds of the grill filled the air at the Rosewood Diner, where Sarah, a weary waitress, fought through her exhaustion to serve another crowded shift. With bills stacking up and Mia's college aspirations looming like a beacon, every minute felt like a test of endurance. She desperately needed the $5 tip from an indifferent customer to make her rent this month. As she counted her meager earnings, the last $10 bill slipped through her fingers, a glowing reminder of her dwindling hope. Outside, the city chilled with a biting wind, and there sat Leo, a homeless man with a face carved from hardship. Something about him stirred a deep unease within her, a reflection of her fiercest fear. Every time she glanced at him, the knot in her stomach tightened. What if, one day, that could be her? A sensation washed over her. It was a moment's clarity mixed with profound anxiety. Her fingers trembled as she stared at the bill she clutched so tightly. Was it worth her steadfast fight to see Mia thrive? A decision loomed heavy, hanging precariously in the balance just outside the door. With a strangled breath, Sarah swung the diner door open and stepped into the icy air. In a flurry of fleeting courage, she approached Leo and handed him the bill, whispering, "Good luck." It was a numbing act of desperation. As she walked away, a mix of humiliation and honor stirred within her, a confusing tension contorting her heart. Did she just condemn herself? Before she could fully ponder her motives, Leo, with surprise flickering in his aged eyes, called after her. The urgency of his voice pulled her back, a force as compelling as the neon lights that saturated the streets with a false sense of warmth. As he caught up, gratitude lined his features, but something darker lay behind his words. "You've got a good heart," he began, but the glimmer of sincerity morphed into something chilling. He offered a proposition, a way to secure money, ostensibly a lifeline amidst her financial chaos. Sarah's mind raced, her pulse quickened. How did she get tangled in this moment? Before the context of Leo's offer enveloped her, another emotion seized her thoughts: fear. Not just fear of the risk but of the moral implications of what lay ahead. "No, thank you," she replied, trying to quell the mounting pressure. The idea of stepping into a world muddied with sin felt like a chasm, perpetuated by uncertainty and the threat of consequences. Surely she could find another way, one that didn't involve entanglement with someone like him. Yet as thoughts spiraled, the undeniable truth stung. A tempest drawn from her mounting debt flirted with her very survival. With every beat, the tension coiled tighter. What would happen if she said no and her bills suffocated her dreams? Anxiety wormed its way through her veins, sending her heart racing anew. Before she could find solace in her own refusal, the door flung open, bringing a rush of the diner's warmth as a new wave of customers flooded in. As orders began piling up, and the familiar rhythm of service resumed, an unsettling grimace formed on her lips. The foundations of her life, her commitment to protect Mia, felt threatened by the shadows of Leo's past and the implications of the choices laid before her. Just as Sarah turned to catch her breath, the chilling vibration of her phone echoed through the space, freezing her blood. It was a message from the Mafia leader, a name she recognized but had relegated to the whispers of the past. It spoke of Leo in ways she could never have anticipated. The urgency of her next move hovered over her like a storm, twisting her stomach into knots. With Mia's future hanging in the balance, how far would she go to protect her child from the depths from which Leo had risen? The darkness beckoned, and as she stood at the precipice, she realized her decisions would determine not just her fate, but her daughter's as well. Caught in a whirlwind of thoughts, Sarah barely managed to keep up with the flow of customers spilling into the diner. Each conversation buzzed around her while the weight of Leo's proposition anchored heavily in her mind. She poured coffee and served plates with practiced efficiency, but the haze of anxiety clouded her focus. How had she ended up in a situation where her financial desperation could lead her into the murky waters of organized crime? The rhythmic grind of daily life left little room for personal reflection. Yet within the clatter of utensils and laughter that accompanied her shifts, a deeper conflict brewed. Was it the sheer weight of responsibility that led her to contemplate Leo's offer? Every time she envisioned Mia's face, the bright future she was determined to secure, Sarah felt the jagged edges of fear and ambition collide. That evening, as she returned home, the oppressive dimness of her small apartment felt suffocating. The walls closed in, reminding her of bills smeared across the table and the impending doom of deadlines she'd long sought to evade. Tension coiled tighter as she exhaled into the silence. Each breath felt laced with uncertainty. Debate whirled in her mind as she retrieved her phone. She stared at the ominous message, listing demands that illustrated the Mafia's reach within the city, alongside warnings about the consequences of defiance. Heavy dread washed over her, yet a flicker of defiance ignited within. She was not defined by her circumstances but by how she reacted to them. That night, sleep eluded her. Shadows flickered across her mind's eye, recalling Leo's haunted expression, the kindness wrapped within his rough exterior like an imperfect gift. When the sun rose the following morning, it did so not with warmth but with a heavy sense of urgency that demanded action. Driven by a mix of fear and newfound determination, Sarah decided to confront this darkness head-on. She researched navigating the web for information while hidden from prying eyes. She immersed herself in the pasts of both Leo and the Mafia, tracing connections, realizing that survival was not simply about obeying powerful figures, it was about gathering knowledge, asserting control over her fate. The diner's atmosphere shifted. In her next shift she approached customers with renewed vigor, weaving stories into her connection with them. Her charm became a weapon, allowing her to gain insights. Each conversation was a piece of intel, a way to feel the pulse of the world outside her own. Amid laughter and banter with patrons, her fear began to transform, morphing into something that resembled resolve, yet each small victory was accompanied by the gnawing specter of Leo's proposition. Talking to customers revealed how interconnected lives could be in a city rife with desperation. A former soldier, a struggling artist, a bartender with a gambling habit. Their stories echoed Sarah's own predicament and a growing understanding clicked into place. She was part of a larger tapestry of people fighting against shadows, but unlike the characters she encountered, she had something to lose, Mia. It was time to make a decision, one that would chase away the haze of uncertainty. Invoking the fortitude she had discovered, she pulled her phone from her pocket, preparing to reach out to Leo, hoping to redefine the parameters of his offer. She didn't want to be consumed by fear or desperation, she wanted to wrestle back her agency, to control the chaos that threatened to engulf her world. As she pressed send, the tension morphed into anticipation. Sarah knew she was stepping into the unknown once more. The hidden dimensions of Leo's connection to the underworld loomed like storm clouds on the horizon. She took a deep breath, heart thudding against a backdrop of vulnerability and strength, ready to face whatever came next. Her journey was just beginning, and as the response pinged on her screen, the fog began to lift, revealing paths she was yet to explore. Would Leo offer a solution, or was she inviting danger into her life? The ping that echoed through the quiet of her apartment caught Sarah off guard, jolting her from a moment of frozen contemplation. With her heart racing, she grabbed her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen like a fighter's fist before a punch. A brief pause where hesitation wrestled with determination. Leo's name lit up the display. This interaction could spiral her life deeper into a pit she had only begun to comprehend, or perhaps, offer her the lifeline she desperately craved. Tension coiled tighter as she read the message, an invitation to meet a neutral spot, an unassuming cafe downtown. Her instincts reacted almost violently, urging her to avoid this confrontation. But her practical side teetered on the edge of something dangerously exhilarating. This was her chance to wrest some measure of understanding from the chaos. What if Leo had answers? What if he could explain a way out that didn't involve towing the line between legality and the criminal abyss? Frame by frame, Sarah dissected the implications. The decision to meet him did not merely symbolize her willingness to engage, it acted as a pivotal moment of self-assertion. The next morning brought a hard clarity as she dressed for her shift at the diner. She moved through the rituals of her routine with purpose, as if she were squeezing every ounce of strength from the familiar motions. The apron felt heavier than usual, the fabric a reminder of the life she was fighting against and the one she was trying to reclaim. Each cup she poured, each plate she served, echoed with grit and gravitas. This was her battleground, and she intended to be victorious. Behind the counter, she observed customers with a newfound perspective, watching their interactions through a lens sharpened by urgency. Her mind catalogued faces, paralleled stories, and their hints of desperation mirrored her own. She turned a blind eye to the weight of her circumstances, recognizing that empathy was not only a safeguard but a tool for survival, another way to connect the threads of her life to others. Tension smoldered beneath her surface as she engaged in playful banter with a regular. Benny, the hopeful artist, sat at his usual table. Today, he shared snippets of a new project, his voice laden with passion, and for the first time, Sarah recognized the beauty of ambition in someone else. She felt a flicker, a pulse that reflected her own struggles, yet without the anchor of their burdens. What would it take to channel that energy? She mused, an idea forming that could tether their aspirations together. Her shift ended, and anticipation morphed into adrenaline as she made her way downtown. The city buzzed around her, yet she felt trapped in her own thoughts, an internal monologue escalating to a crescendo of self-doubt and clarity. What would she say to Leo? Would she remain in control or become merely a puppet in his game? Upon reaching the cafe, Sarah found her voice strangled by uncertainty. The eclectic ambience of the place felt almost sinister despite the cheerful colors and laughter. Leo had chosen this location for its anonymity, but for Sarah, every element screamed danger. She breathed deeply, grounding herself against the sharp edges of anxiety fracturing her resolve. As she stepped inside, she spotted Leo seated at a shadowed booth, his demeanor a puzzle of tension and expectation. His eyes met hers, registering a flicker of something that felt more than just curiosity. Was it camaraderie, or was it a recognition of the game they both played? "Sarah," he greeted, shifting slightly. His voice was low, deliberate, unyielding. "Glad you came." But beyond the customary pleasantries loomed a storm of questions waiting to be unleashed. It was time to confront the decision that would redefine every aspect of her existence. What kind of power lay in her hands? Would she unravel Leo's intentions, or would she let history repeat itself, caught in the web of someone's design? As they settled into uneasy dialogue, she could feel the weight of her choices pressing heavily against the walls closing in around her. This was the moment she would either forge ahead or find herself swallowed whole. The stakes felt higher than ever. Would she seize the opportunity or allow fear to dictate her fate? The answer hung palpably in the air, waiting to be discovered. Sarah felt the air thicken as she slid into the booth across from Leo. The low hum of the cafe faded into a dull background noise, drowned out by the roar of her own pulse. This was not merely a conversation, it was an exploration of the unknown terrain of her life's decisions. She pulled her thoughts together, determined to establish control over the circumstances before her. Leo leaned back, a slight smirk on his lips that irritated her even more. It was a mood that invited her to let her guard down, but she wasn't ready for that. "You seemed surprised to hear from me," he began, his tone deceptively casual. Her response lay on the tip of her tongue, but instead of allowing his words to dictate her reaction, she composed herself. "What do you want, Leo?" The directness caught him off guard, and for a brief moment, surprise flickered in his expression. "I'm just offering a chance, Sarah. A chance for you to step out of this." He gestured dismissively at the cafe ordinary existence. "You're meant for more than this." His comment stung because there was a vein of truth woven through it. Her life felt monotonous, each day folding into the last. But did that justify diving into the chaos of his world? She could feel the tension curling inside her even as an undeniable curiosity lurked beneath her apprehension. "What exactly do you mean?" She folded her arms, her instincts screaming for clarity. Leo leaned forward, dropping his voice. "There are opportunities for someone with your skills. You have a resourcefulness I respect. You can be part of something bigger, something profitable." Sarah bristled at his insinuation. "Are you asking me to join some kind of scheme?" He waved his hands, quickly dismissing her implication as if smacking away a fly. "Not a scheme, an opportunity to flourish. You think those people out there, he motioned to the bustling patrons, are truly living? They're just existing, like you. She stared into his eyes, searching for any hint of deceit. The thrill of the forbidden was palpable, yet so was the weight of moral obligation. And what's the cost of this flourishing? Leo sat back, an air of confidence exuding from him. Just your willingness to embrace it, Sarah. You'd be amazed at how far determination can take you. Her instincts screamed to flee, but the part of her that craved purpose, that sought empowerment in her own narrative, couldn't help but linger on his words. You really think I can? More than I think you realize, he replied, leaning in, his eyes shining with conviction. Look around. You're smarter than these people. You deserve something better than a coffee pot and a notepad. Debating internally, she grappled with the prospect. On the one hand, it reeked of manipulation. On the other, it was a seductive call to power, an invitation to thrive rather than merely survive. Suppose I wanted to hear more, she ventured cautiously. A smile curled at the corners of his mouth, knowing he had her interest piqued. Meet me tomorrow, and I'll show you the ropes. But make no mistake, stepping into this world means leaving your old life behind. The gravity of his statement hung in the air like a dark cloud. It forced her to confront the essence of her existence. Could she become the architect of her future, or would she become another shadow-dodging responsibility? The moment dripped with potential and peril. She opened her mouth to respond, feeling as though a piece of her future hinged on the choice she would make in the next breath. Only if his eyes gleamed with expectation, sensing her pivotal hesitation. Before she revealed the direction of her thoughts, her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her abruptly into the reality of her chaotic life. She withdrew it, her heart dropping. The message flashed on the screen, a stark reminder of threats lurking in her past, and she knew then that whatever decision she made would not just affect her. Was she prepared to embrace the unthinkable, to realize the depths of her own potential, even if that meant crossing dangerous lines? As her pulse raced, Sarah realized the decision ahead was more than just a choice about her future, it was about redefining her entire identity. The taste of fear and exhilaration mingled, creating a bittersweet urgency that compelled her to act. Tomorrow, everything could change, but not just for her. The stakes had never felt higher, and as she looked back at Leo, she knew they were standing on the brink of something monumental. Let's see what you've got, she finally declared, setting the stage for the collision of her past and the dark new possibilities that waited. Little did she know, the next twist in this precarious game would reveal more than she bargained for. The sun barely peeked through the blinds the next morning, casting cold streaks of light across Sarah's small apartment. She stirred awake, her thoughts tangled in a web of uncertainty. The conversation with Leo replayed in her mind, each word pulling her deeper into contemplation. Was it ambition that called to her, or was it merely the shadow of discontent that drove her? As she brewed her morning coffee, the mundane steam rising in swirls reminded her of the home she was contemplating leaving behind. She lifted a mug to her lips but hesitated, the familiar warmth felt different today. It was as if the very act of sipping coffee reminded her of the life she had been living, safe, albeit suffocating. Her phone buzzed again, a persistent reminder of the world outside her haven. A text from a former high school friend flashed on the screen, an invitation to meet up that weekend. It was a reminder of what once was and, possibly, what she might lose. She swiped the message away, unwilling to entertain any distractions today. The weight of her decisions was thick as she pulled on a fresh shirt and slid into jeans, the fabric constricting her with its familiarity. This is how I've always dressed, she realized. But would she dress this way if she truly intended to change? With a deep breath, she recalled Leo's words about her potential. She pictured herself emerging as someone new, confident, powerful. The girl in the mirror stared back at her with uncertainty, but something within flickered, a dim light of determination. As she stepped outside, the cold air struck like a harsh slap, invigorating yet undeniably real. The world around her bustled, oblivious to her plight. Each person swarmed ahead, weaving through their lives, while she felt tenuous at the crossroads of her own. Arriving at the cafe, she spotted Leo sitting at a corner booth, a confident presence against the backdrop of half-empty chairs. Her heart raced, weighed equally by excitement and apprehension as she approached him. "You came," he said, eyes glinting with approval. "I need to know what this opportunity really involves, Leo," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. He leaned back casually, unfolding the components of his proposal with a flourish. "It's about leveraging your skills, your past, your network. Some people literally throw money away, Sarah, and we're going to help them find a better outlet." "But at what costs?" she challenged, unable to shake off her skepticism. "Costs?" he murmured, as if the word held a different meaning in his world. "Life is full of risks. You could stay here among the sheep or run with the wolves. Which do you think will lead to greater rewards?" The visceral imagery resonated within her, awakening something primal. As if to punctuate his point, he slid a small envelope across the table, a stack of bills, crisp and enticing. "Consider it a starting bonus for your investment in yourself." Her fingers brushed against it, a surge of adrenaline igniting something deep inside. For a fleeting second, doubt flickered in her mind. She thought of her moral compass, the right path that felt blurred now. But as she looked at Leo, his poise was magnetic. It beckoned her toward a decision that felt dangerously liberating. "Are you ready to break free?" he asked, breaking her reverie. "Breaking free," she echoed under her breath. The phrase chased away her hesitation, ushering in a burgeoning resolve that replaced her fears, each heartbeat aligned with the pulsing energy around her, each moment a stark reminder of her past. Sarah understood that stepping into Leo's world would force her to confront battles deeper than just external challenges. She would face herself. As she reached for the envelope, a fragment of doubt latched on. What if this plunge into the dark was not the opportunity she sought but a descent into chaos? "Are you ready?" Leo's voice cut through her thoughts, an invitation to leap into the unknown. As she hesitated, feeling the weight of her upcoming choice. In that moment, everything hung in the balance, an unprecedented chapter unfolding. At her fingertips. "Let us see what happens next," she finally decided, sealing her vow to step forward amid uncertainty. But as she turned the envelope in her hands, her phone vibrated violently in her pocket, a message from her past that could crush everything ahead. Would she answer the call to power, or would the echoes of her former life pull her back into oblivion? The vibrating phone felt like a personal attack, a jarring intrusion into the fragile peace she had begun to construct. Heart racing, Sarah glanced down at the screen. It flashed a name that hadn't crossed her mind in years. Mark. The temptation to ignore it was fierce, but curiosity snaked its way into her resolve. She didn't have to answer right away, she could choose the moment. Feeling Leo's gaze still fixed on her, she took a steadying breath and looked up, forcing herself to meet his intense blue eyes. "I have to don't." His voice was firm, not allowing any distraction to derail her budding determination. "You're on the verge of something huge. Focus on that." But the thought of Mark loomed like a shadow, tugging at the edges of her concentration. They had shared dreams, ambitions, and heartaches back in the naive charm of their small-town lives. Ignoring him felt like severing the last thread to her past, and somehow that felt perilous. "How about this?" Leo suggested, leaning forward slightly. "Let us spend some time outlining your strengths. Understanding them will help you define the next steps in this new journey." That was the crux of the matter. She had been living in the confines of someone else's narrative for far too long. If she truly wanted to leap into this unknown, she had to comprehend who she was beneath the weight of expectations and the remnants of her former life. "I know people." The statement was a low murmur, almost flippant. But as the words left her mouth, she recognized their significance. She had always connected well with others, achieving rapport with colleagues and forming friendships even among customers while working double shifts at the diner. It was a skill, albeit honed in a world of routine and comfort. Leo's expression shifted, intrigued. "That's the starting point." Think about how those connections can serve you moving forward. You're not just any waitress, you're a source of information, insights, and networks. Yes, but how do I transition that? She felt vulnerable, the gap between her current self and her desired transformation becoming glaringly apparent. We start leveraging those relationships skillfully. Let us take your connections and elevate them. Someone needs to see you as more than a familiar face serving coffee. He paused, letting her digest the prospect, then continued. Do you still talk to any of your former classmates? Especially ones who've ventured into more ambitious paths? Was she really capable of reaching out to them? The thought sent a chill through her. What would she say? Hey, I'm just a waitress looking to change my life, any tips? Precisely, he urged, pressing the envelope closer. Your voice deserves to be heard, not hidden away. Somewhere between doubt and determination, Sarah recognized the opportunity before her. She could gather strength from her past and transform it. The notion felt exhilarating, yet terrifying. They were pieces of her old self, the less polished components she had avoided, but they had a place in this new narrative. With newfound clarity, she decided to compose herself into action. She would stop wrestling with indecision. Instead, she could embrace the hidden potential she had yet to uncover. As her fingers brushed the edge of the envelope again, her phone buzzed once more. She caught a glimpse of Mark's name, and a rush of conflicting emotions cascaded through her. Sarah? You in? Leo's voice pulled her back to the moment, urging her to engage with the here and now. Yes, she declared, her voice steady. I'm ready to identify my network and reach out. I need to do it my way, not how I've always been told. The words resonated, planting a seed of confidence. Yet, the vibrations from her phone were insistent, a reminder of the tension clinging to her past. Actually, she said, halting Leo's momentum. I think I need to answer this one. As her thumb hovered over the screen, Sarah felt an unexpected shift within, a palpable understanding that she no longer wanted her past to dictate her future. What awaited her could be a revelation, or it could be a devastating return to old patterns. Either way, the dynamics of her next move were hers to command. Guess we'll see what unfolds, she muttered as she accepted the call, her heart pounding not just with fear, but anticipation for whatever lay ahead. Would it be a tether or a bridge to freedom? The phone call connected with an abrupt click, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Mark's voice, distant yet familiar, poured through the speaker. Sarah? It's been a long time. For a moment, she was back in high school, with notes passed under desks and dreams sketched on the backs of her hands. Yeah, she managed, unsure how to navigate the flood of emotions. It has. How have you been? He sounded genuinely curious, but beneath that warmth, she could sense an unspoken question lingering. The silence stretched, mingling with thoughts of Leo's scrutiny and her aspirations. She steadied herself, acutely aware of the journey she was undertaking. I'm working at a diner now, getting by. A silence from Mark's end added weight to her words. Did he remember her relentless spirit, the one he once admired? I remember you always wanted to do something bigger. The flattery was unexpected, warming something within her that had long been buried under doubt. I do. Trying to figure things out. Let's grab coffee sometime. I'd love to hear more about what you're up to. His invitation sparked a surge of excitement tinged with caution. Could she expose the vulnerabilities she guarded so fiercely to someone from her past? Yeah, sure, she replied, tentatively optimistic. Let me know when you're free. After ending the call, Sarah felt both exhilarated and exposed. A powerful desire swelled in her. This could be a turning point, an opportunity to redefine herself beyond small-town confines. Good call? Leo chimed in, his presence a tranquil balance in the chaos of her thoughts. Yes, I think so. The exhilaration was unmistakable, yet swirling underneath was the fear of judgment. He knows me as I was, but doesn't he know what I'm becoming? Now we turn that connection into action, Leo encouraged, sensing her resolve but not the uncertainty. What's next? How will you prepare for this meeting? Taking a deep breath, Sarah felt the weight of intention pressing down on her. She could no longer be a mere spectator in her life. I want to understand who I am now. What have I achieved beyond the diner? Leo's eyebrows rose slightly. Good. Think of specific skills, experiences, and insights that make you unique. Let's prepare a narrative you can share with him. As they dove deep into self-exploration, Sarah began to articulate not just her abilities but also the lessons she had learned. Working amidst a maze of orders and personalities had taught her resilience, patience, and the art of negotiation, a skill needed far beyond any restaurant hours past, and she could see the outline of her new narrative forming a blend of her past solidity and a future she was ready to embrace. In her mind, she was no longer just the girl from the diner, but someone with a story worth telling. Yet doubt lingered just behind her confidence. What if Mark saw her ambition as nothing more than a waitress's daydream? What if he compares me to the old Sarah? She questioned aloud. The one who felt trapped and uncertain? He won't, Leo assured her. You're stepping into your power. You control how others perceive you now. Remember that. As the conversation veered into practical strategies, the momentum built within her. Sarah resolved to reach out to her former classmates, leveraging her professionalism to initiate connections that once seemed beyond her grasp. I'll create an agenda before that coffee meet, she said, her voice steady with determination. Excellent. Prepare to ask some pointed questions. It's not just about your story, it's your chance to open a dialogue about opportunities. His encouragement was rooted in reality. This was about stepping forward, not lingering in past shadows. The night wore on, filled with promises of change, of newfound purpose ready to be seized. The gentle buzz of her phone startled her again, pulling her from her thoughts. The name displaying was familiar, another former classmate. Looks like your network is reaching out, Leo remarked, a knowing smile on his lips as Sarah swiped to answer, her heart hummed with uncertainty and hope. She was prepared for a multitude of outcomes, ready to take ownership of her narrative. Would this call steer her towards the life she envisioned, or would it shatter the delicate layers she had begun to form? Hello? She said, her voice firm, initiating a new chapter poised between past connections and future possibilities. What lay ahead was still unknown, but she no longer felt tethered by it. The voice on the line was teasingly familiar. Hey there, I've heard you're making strides. Let's talk. As their conversation unfolded, she felt the ground beneath her shift. The pieces were falling into place, but an inkling of doubt sharp as ever crept back in. Sarah had cracked the surface, but would her past associations help elevate her to the heights she craved? The answer felt precariously close, teetering on the brink of revelation. The conversation with her former classmate flowed like water, but each friendly exchange stirred the underlying tension within Sarah. They reminisced about shared jokes and old familiar faces, yet the more they chatted, the more she recognized the shifting foundation of her own identity. This was not simply a rehash of who she had been, it was discovering who she might become. Sarah, I'm doing some freelance marketing on the side, her friend said, the tone infused with camaraderie. You remember that event planning business we talked about in school? It seems like everyone's networking to expand their portfolios these days. You should join us. The idea tumbled around in Sarah's mind, each rotation revealing possibilities yet battling her lifelong fears. I'm not really a marketer or planner, though, she replied, wary of the bold course ahead. I work at a diner. What? You're way more than that. Think about it, you handle people, make decisions on the fly, those are all invaluable skills. As her friend spoke, an electric realization hit her like a surge of adrenaline. Marketing wasn't just about convincing people, it was about framing stories that resonated, something Sarah had been doing all along with her customers. Maybe I could. The thought sparked a flicker of hope, but it quickly dimmed. Was she only optimistic because of a transient conversation? Before she could elaborate further, the conversation took a turn. You should come out to our next networking night. I mean, people are hustling, Sarah. If you have even a shred of interest in something other than being at that diner forever, this could open doors. Her friend's words held weight, yet doubt clawed at her resolve. The diner had been a safety net, a well-worn routine that cushioned the fears of uncertainty. Yet it was not the dreams of fulfillment she had once harbored in high school. I'll think about it, she said, though the phrase felt more like a defense than genuine consideration. Later that evening, Leo found Sarah lost in thought, her fingers absently drumming on the diner counter. The rhythm encapsulated her hesitation, and Leo leaned closer, sensing a shift in her energy. What's going on? I just had a conversation that shook my perspective, she confessed. They suggested I attend a networking event, but I'm terrified. What if I'm not prepared? What if they see me for who I really am? Tell me who you think you are, Leo urged, a steady gaze encouraging her to dig deeper. I'm a waitress. I serve food and listen to stories. Sure, I've learned how to juggle orders and diffuse conflicts, she admitted, but can that translate into a different world? Absolutely. What you're doing is honing a skill set, not just serving food but managing relationships and persuasion. That's powerful, Leo replied, gently challenging her self-doubt. The glow of realization sparked again, but it still sparkled against a backdrop of worry. What if I step out there and fail? What if I can't uphold that image? You can't let fear steal your future, Leo countered. Think about it. Stepping into new situations demands honesty. What if your failures are just stepping stones to your next big success? As doubt vied for possession of her spirit, Sarah's determination transformed into something more substantive, an unrelenting urge to define her narrative. It felt distinctly unsettling yet exhilarating, like standing on the edge of a precipice with an infinite world below. Okay, she finally said, a steady conviction anchoring her voice. I'll go to that event. That moment ignited a surge of resolve within her. It was no longer just about coffee with Mark or fragmented conversations with acquaintances. It was her opportunity to carve out a space for herself, to align her past with the potential she envisioned. She envisioned herself engaging new voices, sharing her journey, and weaving her experiences into something bigger. As night fell, she began to draft a list of questions and topics, centering her drive to not just be included but to contribute meaningfully. She felt the weight of anticipation coalescing within her, but beneath the veil of determination, there was a whisper of unfinished business. A nagging worry had taken root. Did she have enough? No longer merely about reputation, but a confrontation with her self-worth and professional aspirations. The following morning, as the sun peeked through her curtain, the phone buzzed again, jolting her out of her thoughts. It was Mark. Hey Sarah, are you still up for coffee? The universe had thrust another opportunity into her path, nearly as overwhelming as the networking event. Sarah inhaled deeply, feeling both the fear and excitement spiral within. Perhaps now, more than ever, it was time to face the future, and the ghosts of her past might finally be tamed. Yeah, let's do it, she replied, her voice steadied by a new resolve. Yet apprehension slithered beneath her skin. What truths would emerge, and how would they reflect upon her pursuit of ambition? As she prepared to meet Mark, it struck her that perhaps this encounter could illuminate the crossroads she stood upon, an intersection not just of her past and present but a gateway to unforeseen horizons. However, it remained unclear if she would be glimpsing an opportunity for growth, or exposing painful truths she wasn't quite ready to face. The atmosphere of the cafe felt charged as Sarah arrived, a cocktail of caffeine and nerves swirling within her. Mark sat at a corner table, his presence both familiar and intimidating. The din of chatter and the clinking of cups faded into a dull hum as her concentration narrowed to the conversation that lay ahead. Hey, it's good to see you, he smiled, motioning for her to sit. She settled into the seat across from him, noticing the way he leaned forward, an instinctive cue that he was genuinely interested. Good to see you too, Mark, Sarah replied, her voice a blend of warmth and apprehension. The realization of how much he had changed since their high school days tugged at her mind. Where once they shared idle gossip, now they were at the headline of a more complex narrative. They began with small talk about mutual friends and life updates. Yet with each exchanged sentence, Sarah's internal dialogue circled back to her decision to attend the networking event. Mark's life appeared to be filled with purpose. He had shed his insecurities and embraced ambition. Honestly, I'm juggling so many projects right now, he added, enthusiasm sparking in his eyes. But it's all worth it when you're doing what you love. What about you? What's your next move? His question struck her, mingling excitement with fear. Was she ready to share her emerging ambition? The weight of her silence loomed heavy. I'm thinking about stepping outside of my comfort zone, she finally admitted, her heart racing. I've been invited to a networking event for marketing. It seems different. Mark raised an eyebrow, intrigued. That's not just different, it's exciting. Marketing? You've always had a flair for storytelling, even back in school. Her pulse quickened at his acknowledgement, but self-doubt whispered ominously in her ear. But I've only ever waited tables. What do I know about marketing? I mean, really? He leaned back, assessing her expression. You know more than you realize. Every interaction you have at the diner is a lesson in persuasion and relationships. You're already in the game, just in a different arena. The diner is my comfort, Sarah retorted, yet the quaver in her voice hinted at her uncertainty. It's safe to stay in what I know. Sure, but comfort can also be a cage, he countered sharply. Cheering from the sidelines isn't enough if you want to be a player. Doubt threatened to envelop her, but his words lingered. There was a flicker of recognition. The insights he offered forced her to confront her own complacency not just in her job, but in her identity. This wasn't just about networking, it was about redefining who she was or, more importantly, who she could become. Okay, she said slowly, her fingers twitching nervously over the napkin on the table. What if I do step out there and fail? What if I realize I don't belong? That's life. Failing is just another way of learning. You'll never know what you're capable of unless you try. Remember, failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of success. The depth of his conviction sank in, igniting a newfound spark of ambition within Sarah. The wait at the diner had always offered her a front-row seat to human dynamics, but she hadn't seen it as a ticket to something larger. It was as if Mark had drawn back the curtain and revealed the stage upon which her aspirations could play out. That makes sense, but she hesitated, the weight of self-perception still anchored firmly in her thoughts. It's scary. What if I fail at making connections and they see me as just a waitress? Mark nodded, a sympathetic understanding softening his gaze. Then you learn to adjust the narrative. Trust yourself. Own your story, Sarah. You're not just a waitress, you're a storyteller. You're so much more than the title your job gives you. The conversation shifted gears. With each turn, new possibilities unfurled before her. Their dialogue was a web, spanning from shared memories to dreams both realized and imagined. The contours of her identity began to reshape, melding her past experiences with the potential awaiting her. As they wrapped up, Sarah felt invigorated, a glimmer of excitement overshadowing her lingering fears. You've given me a lot to think about, she said, her resolve solidifying in the rising waves of her ambition. Good, Mark smiled, his encouragement a beacon of hope. I'm excited to see where it takes you. Yet as Sarah stepped outside the cafe, the cool air enveloped her, and she was met with sudden apprehension. Mark had reignited her spark, but the real challenge lay in harnessing that energy. How could she translate this momentum into real-world action? The thrill of potential pulsed through her. She had one foot in the realm of possibility, yet standing at the threshold felt just as precarious. What awaited her at the networking event was still veiled in uncertainty, and though she had gained clarity, the next move would demand courage. Taking a deep breath, she decided to commit to forging her path forward. Yet, as she made her way home, one question echoed in her mind: would she be able to sustain the momentum? The crossroads loomed ahead, but a flicker of uncertainty remained. Would she embrace transformation, or retreat back to her familiar world? The clock was ticking, and soon she would have to choose. Days turned into weeks for Sarah since that pivotal conversation at the cafe with Mark. No longer the timid waitress who once doubted her worth, she now embraced a new identity with resolve, a woman willing to step beyond her comfort zone and take command of her life. As the date of the networking event approached, Sarah immersed herself in preparation. She compiled a list of her strengths, experiences, and potential contributions. Her past was filled with countless encounters that had shaped her character. Each customer served at the diner was a lesson in empathy and negotiation. With every new day behind the counter, she transformed mundane interactions into repositories of wisdom that would serve her well. The evening of the event, she donned a blazer, something she would have never considered before. As she stood in front of the mirror, staring into her own determined eyes, she recognized the growth that had blossomed within her. Confidence emanated from her. She had come so far from the days of merely existing. Tonight was her night to not only showcase her skills but also to redefine what success could look like. Entering the venue, the energy buzzed around her, a mix of hopefuls and seasoned professionals. Discomfort pricked at her, a gentle reminder of her roots, but she squashed it under a renewed sense of purpose. With every interaction, she took ownership of conversations, drawing on her newfound narrative. "I work at a diner, and I've turned that experience into a passion for connection," she would say confidently. The look of surprise followed by admiration from others left her invigorated. Instead of attempting to conform to the expectations set by others, she embraced her uniqueness, letting it shine. As she wandered through the crowd, she encountered others from various backgrounds. Tales of ambition intertwined with hers, creating a tapestry of experiences. Each discussion cemented her belief that her previous life had not been wasted. Every struggle, every worry was now fertile ground for her growth. Later that evening, as she stood with a group of professionals discussing marketing strategies, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from Leo, a reminder of the shadows she had briefly toyed with. But she dismissed it. She deconquered that fear. She was no longer tempted to step back into darkness. She was ready to step into the light. By the time the event wound down, Sarah had connected with several individuals, each one recognizing her capabilities and expressing interest in working together. That evening, her self-confidence surged as praise filled the air, affirmations igniting deep embers of self-worth. She had done it. She had carved her place in a world that once felt impossibly distant. Weeks later, as she stood at the threshold of her own office, an opportunity was manifesting beyond her wildest dreams, a position at an up-and-coming marketing firm that had recognized her potential during the networking night. The excitement of her official acceptance engulfed her. There was a pulsating thrill in her adjacent reality, and for the first time in a long time, pride uncoiled in her chest. She recalled her earlier days, weighed down by fear and uncertainty, wondering if she'd be lost in anonymity forever. But now, in the glow of opportunity forged through determination, she could see she had transformed not just her trajectory but the very essence of her professional identity. As she entered the office, greeted by new colleagues, a sense of belonging washed over her. This was not merely the end of one story but the magnificent beginning of another, fueled by her tenacity and spirit. Sarah had not just changed her job, she had redefined who she was. In that moment, she understood deeply that true personal achievement stems not merely from external accolades but from the profound realization of one's own worth. She had climbed mountains forged from a difficult past, each step adding to her realized potential. Sarah stood tall, rejuvenated by her illuminated path. The waitress had become a marketing professional ready to write compelling narratives, not just for others but for herself. Now, it's time for you to take a leap toward your own transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.